What I have here is a halberd and a spontoon. I'll hold this up here so you can see it. And both of these were Doug Relic's. A friend of mine who used to live in New Jersey and has moved to Georgia acquired these on some private property outside of Monmouth Battle Field. Now, he had picked up some other items as well, and they are actually had been donated to Monmouth Battle Field, but he passed these along to me because I had bought a few items from him. He knew I was involved with the SAR and doing stuff with kids groups, my grandson and stuff. So these items, I put them on the shafts, and we've actually used them in parades. But anyway, I'll get back to it. What I have here, like I said, this right here is an officer spontoon. It's actually, it looks really nice, but you can tell it's pretty crudely made. If you look at it, it's all one piece. Hold it up here at an angle. You can tell that it's just overlapped. The whole bottom socket is just an overlap. It's just one piece. The quillion is actually just two bars that were rolled over. It looks like they actually just cut the shape out of sheet metal and then hammered the bevel on the point. And this would be what would be carried by your junior grade officers, captains and ensigns, cornets and stuff. More than likely, as these were dug from an area that was a known American camp, these were probably carried on the American lines, which would explain the fairly crude, although personally I really like this piece, but it is, compared to some of the British ones that I've seen reproductions, I've not seen actual ones in purpose, and I've not seen actual relics, but I've looked at pictures of them and stuff, and they're much more refined, much nicely made. This one is, like I said, it is nicely made, but you can also tell it was just made from one sheet of. Matter of fact, a blacksmith friend of mine asked me if he could make a pattern from this, so I'm going to draw him up one actually and make him the pattern, because I want to have some. I actually want to make a pattern for myself to try and reproduce this in my own forge, which I'm not that good of a blacksmith, but I think I can make this. The hardest part will be getting the socket, and it's not even welded, it's just overlapped. Hold it up there so you can get a better look. And that's your officer spontoon. The other piece here is your halberd. Now this would be carried by your sergeants. It's on a shorter shaft, and it basically looks like a small battle axe with a spear point on it. And you can look at this one and tell it was dug. You can see here, if you look right here, there's like a little piece sticking out. This should have latchets coming down and should be riveted through the shaft there, which it's not. It's just had a hole in it, and I just put the same nail that it came to me on when I put them on these shafts. Again, this one here, looking at it, seems to be better made than this one as far as you can't see the weld. Well, maybe if I can, if I look really close. But anyway, the socket is faceted, and then like I said, the latchets have broke off, and it's heavier made, it's thicker. Even the tip, now the tip is also broken off. There's some chipping on the edge. It looked like maybe at some point, I don't know if that's from being in the ground or at some point maybe some kids were trying to use it as a hatchet or something, who knows. But it's also on the back tip, there's a little chip there. But like I said, these are basically Doug Relic grade items that we actually happen to use. That's why they're actually on shafts now. Your sergeants would carry this. The British military started using spontoons and halberds, so their non-commissioned officers and officers wouldn't be carrying a musket. They thought their job was more to be following along behind the men. You would use that as a guide to help line the boys up, and when you got them in your ranks, you would hold that up there. If somebody decided to break and run, you might stab them with it from behind. But during the Revolution, when the British soldiers came over, they were carrying these. They quickly, the way the Revolution was evolving, went to carrying, instead of having the lower sergeants and officers carrying these pole arms, they actually started issuing them. Let me look behind me real quick right here. They actually replaced those with something like this, which is a fusee. military style fusee. This would have been for like a sergeant or light infantry, because it doesn't have, because the officers would have had to purchase their own and they would have been much more embellished. This is a plainer one, more like a sergeant's or a, and this is one I bought a few years ago from a friend of mine, and I accidentally knocked, it did have a bayonet lug on here that I accidentally let the thing slide while I was cleaning it, and it caught on the bayonet lug and knocked it off, and I didn't find it, so I've got to cut a piece to replace that. And I'll put this back in the rack back here. But anyway, the officers would have used that. So about a quarter to halfway through the American Revolution, they pretty much quit issuing these to the troops. I have started using these pieces again, and I will have some added video footage of this, because when we were forming our militia group down at Georgia at Fort Yargo for a 1790s militia group there for a historic site at Fort Yargo, it was built in 1792. So I'm reading through the 1792 militia warrant, or militia acts, George Washington, and tried to standardize the militia throughout all the states at the time. And one of the things that is specified is for their officers and non-commissioned officers to carry a halberd and a spontoon. So we do occasionally use these when we are meeting and drilling with the guys and carrying these around, which is pretty cool that they're, even today, probably 250 years later, they're actually falling into the same role they did during the American Revolution. Back straight up to the border. Oh! Fall off! Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.